I have a strange memory from when I was 5. It was late and I didn't want to go to bed. You see, there was this tiny wall between the living room and my bedroom, and I was sitting there hiding out of sight, hoping that no adult could see me to make me go to sleep. While I was sitting there, someone walked past me. It didn't look like anyone that was in the house. It was a woman in a long, flowing white dress. She glided up past me and vanished right into the wall. I immediately got up and told my parents and brothers, but no one believed me. They all thought I was just trying to get out of going to sleep, and they would just send me off to my bedroom. I was scared and I didn't know what was happening. And I was mad too. No one believed me. Years passed before I encountered the strange ghost again. I was 12 when I was cleaning my room. I looked over to the corner where the vanity sat, and there, in the mirror, was a pale-faced woman with long brown hair tied up in a bun. She was wearing a long white dress. It looked like something from the turn of the century. From the way she was positioned, I could tell that she was sitting on the stool, but when you looked at the stool in front of the vanity, no one was there. And then, as quickly as she had appeared there, she just vanished. I don't know who that woman was, or how long she'd been in my house. I haven't seen her since that day, but every once in a while, I get this strange feeling that she might still be around.
Molly Boat. We all might like to believe that people will remember us when we're long gone. Now, as a child, I wandered around our little small town. I'd spend quite a few hours with the old spinsters or widow ladies. Often they'd give me cookies and tell me stories that I'd get wrapped up in for hours. Molly Boat was such a lady. Her husband passed and left her alone. I'd go visit her and she'd cook me yellow grits. For some reason, I really loved them. And she would tell me not just any stories, but ghost stories about her husband touching her shoulder when she walked down the hall. Any kind of bump in the night kind of tale. Now, there was a small swamp behind my grandma's house, and us kids liked to go play in. My grandmother would fuss tell us that we wasn't allowed there, and she would always tell us that that swamp had an open well in it, so we should stay away from it or we would get hurt. And on one of the occasions when I was visiting Molly Boat, I asked her about the swamp. Now, Molly told me that it was probably the ghost as to why my grandmother wouldn't allow us in the swamp. And naturally, my ears perked up. I had to hear what ghost. I asked, what ghost? Molly said that not long in our town that there had been a bank robbery, and the robbers had robbed the bank and ran into the swamp. Now, one of the robbers got greedy and killed the other robber, and then he decided to stay in the swamp for the night. And when the police decided to search the swamp the next morning, they found both men dead, only the greedy one was missing his head. And he was leaned up against a tree in his suit with his hat pinned to his jacket. Now, you can bet I told my friends that story really quick. Molly hardly had time to tell it to me before I was running down to my friend Sammy's house to tell it to her. So one night we decided we were going to check it out and find out what was up with the swamp. And we had walked maybe 200 yards into the swamp. And as we walked there, we were both scared anyway. But then, all of a sudden, we both looked over toward this tree, and you can believe me or not, but there was a man's hat floating in midair. That black hat floated there for about 2 seconds before we haultailed out of that swamp and didn't look back. Or I didn't look back, and I never went back again. But I can tell you this, Miss Molly Boat's been gone from this world a lot of years, and everything she told me before or after has always been believed.
When I was little, my parents spoiled me. The popular doll at the time was Amazing Amanda. She was a robotic doll that would walk and talk, and you could feed her and stuff. She was very expensive. So, to my parents' dismay, I was completely terrified of her. The way she moved and talked just creeped me out. It didn't take too long before she ended up in our store shed. While she was there, we started to hear her talking. She would be heard at random times asking for food, saying things like, "I love you, Mommy." My room was near the storage shed, so I could hear her voice from my bed. For a long time, I was afraid to even go near the place. After months and countless hours of torment, we dug her out of the boxes. When we did, we discovered that rats had eaten her face. She was twisted into a horrifying expression. We flipped her over to remove her batteries so that she would stop playing and stop calling out for food and calling out for her mommy and keeping me awake at night. We pulled back the Velcro flap and unscrewed the plastic case. We opened her up only to find that there were no batteries. After all this time, she didn't have any batteries. She was playing all on her own. Once we discovered that, we decided to burn her. Yes, she was an expensive doll, but I think we were all glad that she was gone.
A few years back, I was working at a night shift at a nursing home. The hours were long, and I missed my cozy bed at night, but it was only about a half mile from my house, and I somehow felt safer being so close to home. I had formed a ritual after leaving work and coming home each morning. I'd put on a pot of coffee and relax in the recliner in my living room, sipping coffee and clearing my head of all the cloudy thoughts of work before showering and going to bed. One morning I unlocked the door, walked to the kitchen, trying ever so hard not to wake my sleeping family. I got my favorite cup out of the cupboard. It seemed to be a morning like all the others I'd had for the past year. I took my cup and went to prop my feet up in my recliner. I leaned back, trying not to bump the wall. As I looked up toward my daughter's bedroom, I saw a man of slender build walk right past her doorway. I jumped in surprise, but the fact is that he couldn't have been there. I was puzzled to have seen him. The path he walked, I saw he would have had to pass right through the wall. It was impossible. I got up, I looked in her room. I tried not to wake my 5-year-old child, but I searched her room. I had a hard time resting that day, but I went to work as usual. When I got to the nurse's station, looking for my relief to do some rounds, the first thing she said to me was that one of my favorite patients had passed away that day. 10 minutes after I had left, she said, "It was just so strange that he said, 'I smell coffee,' before he passed. And I wondered if it was him that I saw that morning in the doorway And then I'd like to think it was because it makes me feel more at ease.